With that, we are going to get started with our fifth session of today, which is Expand Your Search with Widgets by Marisha C. Kelly. Marisha C. Kelly is a reference and instruction librarian at Northcentral University Library, which provides access to resources and services 100% online. She holds a BS in magazine journalism from Syracuse University and earned an MS in library and information science from Drexel University. As a former freelance writer, she spent a fair amount of time researching story content and digging for details in libraries, which opened up her love and appreciation for information work. Her personal experience as a distance learner prompted an interest in virtual reference, as well as discovery and access services. All right. If you are ready, I will stop sharing and feel free to go right ahead.
And Jill, it looks like I'm not able to start screen sharing. Let's see. Oh, there we go. It looks like I can. Right. Perfect. All right, everyone. Well, I want to thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. As Jill mentioned, I'm Marisha Kelly, and I'm a reference and instruction librarian with Northcentral University. And that being said, the NCU Library has embedded various search widgets from diverse platforms so that our users can extend their searches beyond results provided in our discovery search engine. So today's session will discuss widgets and strategies for creating and incorporating them across library sites. But before we discuss widgets, I would like to provide some background about Northcentral University and the NCU Library. So Northcentral University actually offers bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees taught completely online. So we're 100% remote. This is all pre-pandemic. Our FTE is about 6,380, and 98% of our student body is graduate students, with 69% of those students completing a doctoral degree. Our students are located all across the globe, spanning about 58 countries. And we do have a unique one-to-one learning model with weekly course starts. So we don't have traditional, fall and spring semesters. Basically, any student can start on any Monday, which keeps things interesting for reference in the library. About the NCU Library, we offer our resources and services, including interlibrary loan, delivered to users, again, in a 100% online environment. And our library staff are fully remote, with key members in California, New Mexico, Arizona, Florida, and Pennsylvania. And I'm actually based in Florida, but lived in Syracuse, New York for some time. So I do hope that everyone is staying warm and remaining safe with all the winter storms. And that being said, related to our library technology, we do utilize our SpringShare suites for connecting with users through chat, text, and email, as well as for developing library guides and tutorials. We do manage our access to electronic resources using Open Athens, and we do use EBSCO Discovery Service, EDS, as our search solution, as well as Ex Library's 360 knowledge base. So that's a little bit about the NCU Library for some context. So let's talk about widgets. So what is a widget? It's interesting to read how widgets are defined throughout the literature, and these are just a couple of definitions, but ultimately they are interactive single-purpose applications for displaying or updating information. They are portable chunks of code that can be installed and executed with any separate HTML-based web page by an end user without requiring additional compilation, or it's a small icon or search box which opens a session in a different software application from the one in which the widget resides. And we'll kind of see these various definitions applied in different contexts from how we've used them at Northcentral. So why widgets? So that being that being the issue with widgets, we wanted to engage users in increased resource usage and discoverability across library database platforms. We noticed that some library databases had lower usage across the board, and we began to incorporate search widgets on guides to draw users to that particular content. We also wanted to integrate subject-specific and user-specific search tools across library web pages, including those in LibGuides. Specifically, our alumni users access content and resources differently than our current student users and faculty. So while they're unable to use our main discovery search due to licensing restrictions, we have created specific search widgets for alumni resources that they're able to search in and browse and access the collections. We also wanted to encourage users to access resources for research available beyond the library. The NCU library has access to a lot of great resources, but I always tell students that it's just physically and virtually impossible for us to provide access to every single resource, all of the information sources that may be available on their topic. So these search widgets have provided an extension and connected those users to resources that they may not have otherwise located or considered in the NCU library collections. And this is particularly important for our students who are conducting a review of the literature and working on their dissertations. And with that, we also wanted to provide alternate access to content not integrated in discovery search results. So with EDS, EBSCO Discovery Service, there are some publishers whose content is not available for indexing on the platform. And there are some databases with such unique content that is just not suitable to display in search results. So users would have to search specialized financial or statistical databases individually to retrieve information. And some of these databases include Mergent Online for company profiles and data, or Statista, which is a database that contains statistical data and infographics. So the following charts here on this slide related to widget use are actually from a white paper that was published by SAGE, which surveyed 168 librarians. Users were actually asked if they incorporated publisher-supplied search widgets on their library's website. And you can see in this chart that in the first figure that more than 60% of the respondents do not use search widgets, and comments reflected that librarians were unsure about what is a search widget. Other comments included that some librarians felt that they may be giving preferential treatment to a publisher and that a widget should be considered for every publisher. And it was mostly an all or nothing type of decision. And then the interesting part here is that more than 82% of those librarians surveyed used LibGuides to create research guides for their users. So having the ability to embed widgets using HTML content or apply specific code on those pages. There was another case study by Susanna Conrad and Christy Stevens that described usability testing with 10 students at Cal Poly Pomona University Library. One of the tasks asked students who were on a particular library guide to find additional books on product development. Testers of the first version were much more likely to use embedded search box widgets on the guide, and 3 out of the 5 students used the search widget on the page to browse the library's catalog. Conversely, though, there was a separate case by Sarah Gardner and other library staff at James Madison University Libraries, and they made the case for eliminating the use of search widgets for the catalog and other tools, and instead they hyperlinked those search tools using descriptive text on their library guides. So it seems to be a wide array of perspectives and use of search widgets, whether some institutions use them and others don't. So I do want to share a couple of examples of how we use search widgets and different widget types at NCU. So the first here is our alumni search widgets in LibGuide. So again, our alumni users are not licensed to use Roadrunner Search, which is our branded EBSCO discovery service. So we've created widgets for ProQuest, which provides ample alumni access to resources, as well as created a search for journal and ebook titles through our 360 knowledge base. So they can still have the same experience, even though they're not able to search traditionally our discovery platform. We also have Roadrunner search widgets. We know that some users don't always start on the library's homepage and may link to a specific subject guide to begin researching their topics. So here's an example of our COVID-19 interdisciplinary research resources guide. And we also wanted to include library access to resources and course guides. So at NCU, there is a push to make course guides for required readings and those that also include assignment specification. So each course guide has a library portal tab that includes a widget to Roadrunner search, as well as other things like library events and then chat widgets as well. All the more to make the library resources accessible for our users. We have also incorporated, where appropriate and related, calendar and frequently asked questions widgets for more information. So RefWorks is the NCU Library's preferred citation management tool, and it is available to all current students as well as our alumni. So users can register for weekly live training. So we've kind of plopped this LibCal widget, this calendar widget, where users can register for those trainings. And then we also transitioned to Open Athens over the summer, so a pretty recent change for us, but we did create an FAQ widget to help guide users on the changes that are expected. So these are some of the frequently asked questions that we put together and displayed on across our guides related to our change. Now here we have our Roadrunner search, our discovery interface, and we've actually worked extensively with EBSCO and our designated library services engineer there to optimize the search experience for users. And what is now the classic EDS. So I know that EBSCO just rolled out their new user interface, but on the classic interface, we have added these extend your search widgets to link users to additional sources of information by transferring keywords and search phrases to other research databases and tools. And these widgets are located on the far right of the Roadrunner search page, and they allow users to replicate their searches in Google Scholar, ProQuest dissertations and theses global, as well as Statista at the click of a button. And we chose these specific resources because not all of the content from ProQuest resources is indexed and made available in search results in our platform. Statista has, again, unique content that's just not suitable to display in search results. And then again, we wanted to allow users to explore and learn more about other citations that may be relevant to their research by maybe doing a Google Scholar search for their related to their topics. And here are the examples from a search when clicking on those widgets. So the benefit here is that users' search queries are carried over to the other platforms, but there are drawbacks. So the drawback is that overly complex searches that include things like nesting or truncation may not be properly interpreted. So as you can see in the example for Statista, it couldn't interpret my search, so it's making a recommendation. So we might have to simplify this search in order to find more appropriate results. We have considered that this is not a seamless user experience, but we chose these databases and tools over others because of the ability to mirror searches. At one point, we have looked at adding other types of widgets for different databases. One example being Web of Science, so that users could explore citations and related data. But this database in particular, it wasn't possible for the search terms to carry over. So it would have been essentially a link to the database within our discovery search. So again, not a seamless user experience there as well. So we'll talk a little bit about creating widgets. So the next few slides will provide some guidance and instruction on how you might begin to create widgets for your respective library pages based on some of the vendors and publishers that you're working with. So here we have the widgets creator, if you will, for EBSCOhost databases. So you can create an HTML code that can be placed into your library's website or on a LibGuide. There is a separate tool in the search box builder to create an EDS search box. So this particular series of images of screens here are to create subject specific or database specific search widgets. And you can customize your search box by identifying different databases. You can pre-apply limiters. You can also add keyword terms, and you can also choose your selected form of authentication depending on how your users access resources. So that link is here, and I'm sure some folks might want to check these pages out. So I'll make sure to provide the slides as well. Here we have ProQuest databases. So again, we use this for our alumni resources, particularly because we provide the most content to ProQuest for alumni. So we have created several different search widgets for general searches, as well as dissertation specific search boxes where users can search for, their published dissertations. The important thing with ProQuest databases, though, is that you do have to sign up and log in with a personal My Research account in order to access the widgets area where you can then, begin creating that widget. So you can select the different types of databases, you can apply different search limits, and you can also select the authentication method if you're working with remote users. We've also incorporated Gale databases, particularly with search widgets across some of our subject-specific guides. At one point, we were seeing very low usage for Gale resources. So we did pinpoint specific databases in our Gale one-file collection that targeted education resources or business resources and created widgets for those to display on those guides. So if you have access to Gale databases, you can actually access the widget site through Gale support, and you would log in with your location ID, and then you're prompted with all of the widget options. So you can customize the widget, you can build it in an iframe, you can create it using HTML code, which you can then incorporate onto a LibGuide. And then we also, because we use LibGuides, we also have some LibGuide specific widgets that we've incorporated through SpringShare. So you can embed Google search boxes into LibGuides using the Google search asset option, and results will open in a new window. But what I'd like to stress here is that currently LibGuides does not track the usage for the Google search widgets asset type. So it's hard to gauge whether users are utilizing that search widget because there is no way to track that data. And then you're also able to create, again, those FAQ widgets by going to your LibAnswers platform, and you can display a list of most popular FAQs or FAQs by topic, which we did for Open Athens as an example. And then the last thing here is that you can create calendar widgets for embedding, and you do that through LibCal if you do host your events through SpringShare. And again, we've kind of created these different calendars for different topics that we're presenting on, like RefWorks. It is hard to gauge, though, whether users register for events using links specific to that embedded calendar widget. So we just have no way of knowing whether users are registering through there or other places on the library's website, or even in other university systems where we post announcements for those particular events. So those are some other things to consider. There is also an ERIC database widget, and we've incorporated this across all of our education specific guides. If you're not familiar with ERIC, there's a lot of great content published in the education field. And it's one of the few databases that or the only database that I know of that allows users to filter content by education level, which is helpful for our students, depending on what their topics are. But if you're logged in through the ERIC platform, at the very, very bottom in the footer, there is a widget link where you can actually copy the code and then embed this into your guide. So this is kind of what it looks like on our LibGuide in the far right image. So we've added that box to all of our guide pages for education resources. And then the last widget that I'll kind of discuss or mention is Credo Reference. There's a lot of different Credo reference widgets, and you can actually copy the Credo search box LibGuide into your own LibGuides to reuse these widgets. And you can choose from basic search boxes or subject specific search boxes. We haven't incorporated many Credo widgets. However, we're starting to explore the idea for some of our subject specific guides, because there are filtered boxes available for different topics, as well as different forms of media. So you can utilize that Credo reference video search box or that image search box as well. For some of the ones that we have tested, we did run into a little bit of a hiccup with our authentication. So if that's the case, you can always reach out to Credo reference support, and they were helpful in kind of tailoring the box, if you will, to work with our authentication for testing purposes. And our last slide here, feature considerations. So as we continue to kind of explore how we use widgets, we do want to explore ways to track search widget usage. Again, some of the tools, some of those assets just don't have the ability to retain data for how many users are accessing content through that widget. We would like to continue to review database usage and consider widget creation for other sources to drive access to that content. And ideally, we'd like to conduct additional usability testing with students and faculty on their search preferences to kind of inform those widgets, and then particular widget styles, since you can kind of change the layout or the format of those boxes. That brings me to the end. These are a list of references for some of the sources here. If you're interested in reading more about that white paper study and other content. And here is my contact information in case you all might have follow-up questions, but I appreciate everybody's time today.
All right, thank you very much for that. And all the slide decks from today are going to be shared on our website. So those references, if any of you folks want to grab them, you'll be able to. With that, there are a few questions for you in the Q&A, so we'll get to those. The first question, do you run into problems trying to license your electronic services with such widespread campus? Are there any geographic limits to what resources are available to students and faculty?
So all of our resources are actually licensed with online students in mind. So we haven't run into any particular issues or problems with licensing our services. The main thing that we've had to showcase to vendors is that we do have, an electronic access management system in place. So we do use Open Athens. We only provide access to students, users who are affiliated with the institution. And there's no geographic limits to what resources are available. We have had instances where students in countries abroad have contacted us about their inability to access some resources, but that had to do more so with IP addresses being blocked or certain websites being blocked, based on where they were living that they just couldn't access. So that's been kind of an issue depending on where students, where faculty are located, but we've been able to kind of help those students and provide them with alternate access if needed.
All right, thank you. Next question. Just curious, was the decision to not give access to EBSCO Discovery a cost issue, authentication issue, or something else?
And I think this might be related to alumni. So unfortunately, EBSCO Discovery Service wasn't a product that we could license for our alumni users for a couple of different reasons. But the largest reason was the partner databases and the indexes that were provided with EBSCO Discovery Service just weren't licensable for that particular user group. So, we had explored a similar option, but it just was a licensing issue with the publishers and the content that's made available through the index that's provided in EBSCO Discovery Service. So not all of those resources were alumni acceptable in that case. So that's why we went with creating search widgets for the licensed content that we had for those users.
All right, thank you. One last question in here, unless people add more, which just happened. Do you find reference and/or instruction to be more complicated with so many different ways to access content?
I think students' biggest hurdle, and this may be the case for any library, is knowing where to start. And particularly in an online environment, I mean, they have resources in their online course, they have resources through our writing center, and then they have all of these different databases, resources, and content, available through the library. So I think it's hard for them to understand where to begin searching for relevant content because there are so many different options. But we do offer research consultations for students, so they can always book a one-on-one with a librarian. We do offer workshops regularly covering different topics and how to, make the most of your searches in our discovery platform, or how to use particular strategies to find relevant information. So I do think it's a little bit more complicated in that there's so much available that users just don't know where to start.
Okay, thank you. And last question. Have the embedded widgets increased students' knowledge of databases outside EDS? Did the direct usage of the databases go up after students were exposed to the resource name?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, it's kind of hard to assimilate because we can't gather, concrete quantitative data. But in the one-on-one consultations that I and my teammates have had with students, they're always blown away at the fact that they can start their search in Roadrunner or EDS platform and then branch out to other databases and other resources to find related content about their topic. So I think it's nice that they have they may not always notice those widgets on the far right, but once we show them, the feedback that we've received is that they really like using Google Scholar, or they didn't know that they could access related dissertations and theses to kind of help them with their own topics and information that they're researching. And I think there was the other half of the question, did the direct usage of the databases go up? So we have seen increased usage for Gale databases since creating widgets, and we've also added Gale databases to our best bets list for certain subject areas on our A to Z databases list. So overall usage for Gale content was very low, but it has steadily increased with making these types of resources available through widgets and by highlighting them in best bets on our A to Z databases list as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to everyone who asked the questions, and just thanks a lot for your presentation and all that great information.